Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi. Good evening and welcome to Hudda Tonight. We owe you a very sincere apology. We're running just over 30 minutes behind schedule. We have many plans for Ramadan this year. We're wrapping up some of those things, and we had a schedule conflict for this very limited space that we have. We have a very small budget here. We want to do a plug as best we can to try and to do fundraising. You know, we don't have major corporations that are providing funding for us, and so this puts a great strain on us. We sometimes have these competitions for space and staff. In any case, we're very pleased to be here, continuing the live coverage of Hudda Tonight. I'm Ali Coleman. I'll be your host for the program tonight. Today's date on the Islamic calendar is the 25th of Shaban, 1437, and it is the first day of June 2016 on the Christian calendar. As always, we're going to try and provide as best we can some of the latest news and information from across the Muslim Ummah, and also have discussions of important topics. Tonight in our news segment, we will go to look at the events, the various things that happened in various governments around the world to mark what is known as World No Tobacco Day. This is a international effort led by the World Health Organization to try and raise public awareness about the harms of tobacco. Many of us already know, but they are committed. Governments have committed themselves. They've taken action by passing laws and changing policies in this area. We look at this. We also go to look at this very long-standing tradition in the United States, the Boy Scouts of America. It was established more than 100 years ago for the purpose. It's a youth organization. They provide educational programs, character development training, leadership, etc. And increasingly, we're seeing Muslim Americans, immigrants from Muslim countries who are participating in the Boy Scouts. We look at the activities of Muslim Americans who are participating in the Boy Scouts. We also go to a feature story to look at the Mayans, those who are descendant from this ancient civilization in Latin America, are embracing Islam. We look at the Mayan Muslims tonight. Sister Mayal Makdi prepared a report for us. We take a look at this. We look at these and others in our news segment tonight. We're going to shorten our news somewhat so that we can try and catch up with the time that we lost. In our social segment, we're looking at a political economy subject dealing with foreign investment in Muslim countries, and also continuing our lessons taken from Surah Al-Baqarah, inshallah. We want to look at, inshallah, one item very quickly from this day in history. We go to the year 1980. This is the start of CNN. CNN is owned by Time Warner. It is a standard 24-hour news coverage. In fact, CNN was the first television channel to provide 24-hour news coverage. It was also the first channel that had, in the United States, that had entirely news content. It started broadcasting on this day in history, June the 1st, 1980 at 5 p.m. local time from its Washington, D.C. studio with Bernard Shaw as its news anchor. This is a well-known African-American journalist featured here in this video. CNN has been extremely successful, and now it has international presence in more than 210 countries worldwide through its sister network, CNN International. Just one item from this day in history. We take a short break, inshallah, and we'll come back, start with our news segment, and continue, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Hudda Tonight. We want to repeat our apology to you. We are running just over 30 minutes late. We again had some space and staff challenges. There was a program that was recorded, and in any case, we're glad to continue the program. We start tonight's news segment with a religious leader, a very well-known religious leader, but he is not a Muslim. This is the leader of the Tibetan Buddhists, the Dalai Lama. He is the 14th Dalai Lama, the leader of the spiritual community of Buddhists based in in Tibet, who has spoken out regarding the mass movement, the mass migration of people from Africa and Asia into European countries. He has said that these migrants, instead of continuing to flood into to Europe, need to return. Those who have already made it need to somehow make their way back home for the purposes of building up their own countries. He was speaking to the press recently. He said, quote, that Europe, for example, Germany, cannot become an Arabic country. Germany, he said, is Germany, end quote. He says, quote, that the goal should be that they return and help to rebuild their own countries, end quote. Now, this was the way that the international press is covering his remarks is with a bit of surprise. He is well known as a humanitarian, outspoken in terms of being compassionate towards people's suffering. And so we're not exactly certain what to make of if this is a departure from what he typically has to say regarding human suffering. He himself has been in exile for many decades. He was displaced, has been officially taken up residence in India since 1959 because the Chinese government sees him as somewhat of an outlaw. In any case, we also know in terms of the suffering of Muslims in a Buddhist majority country, Myanmar, he has spoken out against the acts of Buddhists in Myanmar. We have video of Buddhists wearing their Buddhist garb, physically abusing Muslims in Myanmar. And he, the Dalai Lama, has spoken out against this type of violence, saying that it is not in keeping with the teachings of Buddhism. In any case, we're glad that he is encouraging people to be sensitive about their home countries, and also that in past times he's condemned the violent extremism of Buddhists. We move to our next story. It takes us to a trip of the Turkish president, Tayyip Erdogan, who is in East Africa right now. He has a great concern about a political rival that he once was an ally of. This is the Fethullah Gulen. This is the name of an imam, a spiritual leader of a movement called Hizmet. One of the main objectives that Erdogan has in East Africa during his visit is to raise the awareness, to make the case that this Turkish organization that is very deeply rooted in sub-Saharan countries in Africa is not in step with the Turkish government. That initially this leader, Fethullah Gulen, was an ally with Erdogan, but they have had a parting of ways. In fact, the Turkish government has now declared this organization Hizmet as a terrorist organization. This decision by the Turkish government to make this official declaration was just conducted this week. And this is one of the main things that he's talking to the African leaders about on his trip. He has described this organization, Hizmet, as a parallel state through the followers in the police, the judiciary, the media, and business in Turkey. And he says that they have the goal of overthrowing him as the Turkish president. He makes all these very tall allegations against Mr. Fethullah, and again, declaring it a terrorist organization. A government spokesman for Turkey said that this network organizes itself swiftly in countries that it goes to by using Turkey's name and power, and opportunities are offered to it as a result. The spokesman for the Turkish government said that through these trips, it will be explained that this is a terrorist organization harmful to Turkey and that Turkey does not support it. In fact, this now classifies Hizmet along with this Turkish, the Kurdish organization, armed insurgency group that has been fighting, that is responsible for many terrorist attacks in Turkey. So he is in East Africa meeting with the leaders in Kenya as well as in Uganda. We stay, inshallah, in Africa, and look at this larger story. This is an international event that occurred just yesterday, May the 31st. It's called World No Tobacco Day. We saw many governments across the globe to mark this annual event by passing various types of anti-tobacco measures. The day is observed every year on May the 31st, and the World Health Organization, as well as governments, as we suggested, have marked this event. We've seen a number of governments across Europe, Asia, and Africa pass these measures. The focus this year is on the packaging of cigarettes. They are introducing a plain packaging cigarette policy. We've seen governments such as Canada, France, New Zealand, Norway introduce measures or pass them, as well as on the African continent in Uganda, Kenya, and South Africa. We heard from the South African health minister say that, quote, no branding, no logos, no colors will be allowed on cigarette packs. In other words, they're stripping them down to the bare bones. They don't want to attract people's attention, and certainly not to draw young people to the brand marketing of companies. We also heard very similar remarks from the Kenyan Cabinet Secretary for Health and the Ugandan equivalent. So we're very glad to see all these governments across the globe commit themselves to raising public awareness, to hopefully, inshallah, in various ways and measures, to discourage people from starting this very addictive habit. We sympathize with those smokers who are addicted to, and this is a proper addiction. It's a chemical addiction. Things change in the body. It's very difficult to break the habit. We want to encourage smokers, especially, this is a great opportunity in the month of Ramadan to drop this very deadly habit, inshallah. And we know that the World Health Organization has told us that tens of thousands of people who are not smokers but stand near those that smoking are dying every year by the tens of thousands. So everyone, it's in everyone's interest to reduce smoking, inshallah. We move to this story from the United States. It's about the Boy Scouts of America. This is one of the oldest and largest youth organizations in the United States. It was founded more than 100 years ago in the year 1910. It has positively impacted the lives of more than 100 million boys over that time period. Scouting is a quintessential American tradition whose stated goal is to train youth in character development, leadership skills, self-reliance, and responsible citizenship through a wide array of educational programs, as well as indoor and outdoor activities. Especially, the Boy Scouts are very well known for camping trips. This story focuses on the last goal, which again is to teach responsible citizenship. We're seeing increasingly that immigrant Muslim families from various parts of Asia and Africa are increasingly enrolling their children in the Boy Scouts. At every meeting, the young scouts recite the creeds of scouting, as well as allegiance to the United States. It says, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. It also says that on my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country. A scout is trustworthy, is loyal, is helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent, end quote. This is a statement that the scouts have to recite at every meeting that they attend. The statement continues, it says, as an American, I will do my best to be clean in my outdoor manners, to be careful with fire, to be considerate of the outdoors, to be conservation-minded, end quote. Now, some of the Muslim parents see that the teachings of the Boy Scouts are consistent with the teachings of the Holy Quran. The Boy Scouts, they currently have a membership of more than 3.5 million. That includes 1 million adults who work with the young people. Most of them are Christians, and many of the meetings that they hold are held at Protestant churches, but not all of them. As we said, the numbers of Muslims are increasing. As a result, there are nearly 80 masjids across the United States that serve as bases for these various scouting groups, and they serve about 2,500 boys. That's according to a statement by the National Islamic Committee on Scouting. There's also one of these organizations, one of the most prominent ones, is in the U.S. state of Virginia. It's the Adams Center. This is an acronym for the All Dulles Area Muslim Society. This is a very large and successful example where they have 25,000 worshipers who attend the mosque, and they have just recently completed a $6 million expansion project for the main part of the masjid. The Muslim families are immigrating from various parts of Africa, as we said. They include Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Egypt, India, Malaysia, Pakistan, and others. We heard from Rizwan Zakat. He's the chairman for the Adams Center, this very large mosque that hosts a scouting group in Sterling, Virginia. He says that, quote, "Scouting is about love of country and love of God," end quote. He says that that correlates perfectly with what Adams' vision, creating that firm American, and I stress American, he says, Muslim identity. So this is a trend that we're seeing, and this comes at a time when Muslims are being criticized, accused of being anti-American. In fact, we see in the presidential political cycle that the Muslim identity is used as a political weapon to strike fear in the hearts of potential voters. This same tactic was used against President Barack Obama, and when he initially ran in 2008. Although he's not a Muslim, they tried to say that he was. He said that Obama did, that there's nothing wrong with being a Muslim, but I'm not one of them. In any case, we see this same tactic, using Islam as a weapon, both in the United States and in European countries. But the reality on the ground is very different, as we have these thousands of Muslim families across the United States participating in citizenship programs, inshallah. We move to our last news item for tonight. It's a feature story on the descendants of this great Mayan civilization that existed at the time of the arrival of the Spaniards, the Spanish, inshallah, many hundreds of years ago. They are now embracing Islam. We take a look, inshallah, at the Mayan Mexicans who are embracing Islam.
Mexico was first discovered by the Europeans in their quest for the New World, and once they stepped foot on the land, introduced them to the Catholic religion. And today, in absolute terms, it has the second largest Catholic community in the world, whereby an Orthodox version of Christianity is practiced. Kenyan politician Muhammad Jomo Kenyatta succinctly stated that when the Europeans came in the land, they were held the Bible in their hands and we had the soil in ours. They taught us to pray with our eyes closed, and we open our eyes, we see the Bible was in our hands and the soil was in the hands of the white man. The same scenes also took place in the territory of the Maya and Inca, with their wealth taken over by the Europeans and the Bible being left in the hands of the local people. However, how it can be possible to imagine the presence of Muslims in this land amongst the Catholic population of 120 million? According to official statistics, there are approximately 4,000 Muslims in Mexico today. These numbers don't include those who have come from Turkish or Arab countries. The community of Muslims are due to a group who invited them to Islam in 1994 to 1995, and they heeded the call to Islam and chose to become Muslims. This group is located in the southern tip of the state of Mexico in Chiapas. What stands out is that Chiapas was the center for the Baptista uprising of 1994. Immediately after this uprising, Muslim missionary Muhammad Nafi, a Spanish missionary and a student of Scottish convert Abdul Qadir al-Sufi, previously known as Ian Dallas, leader of the Murabitun Word movement, began to visit areas where there was a heavy Maya population and invited them to Islam. Subcommandant Marcos, the leader of the uprising, refused to respond to letters sent to him by the Muslims and didn't speak to them. One wonders whether he may have been reluctant reluctant to be persuaded by the Muslims. The Muslim community at this stage are now making an effort to fulfill their Islamic obligations. Their names are now Mustafa, Ibrahim, Abdullah, Noura, and Fatima. One by one, they explain Islam to their circle of friends and families, with a large number converting to Islam. Today, it is one of the largest Muslim-populated area in Mexico, with a commune also established in the city of San Cristobal. Today, there are 12 mosques in Mexico, with half of them in Chiapas alone. Leading an empty and meaningless life was the main factor for the conversion of the Mayan Muslims, with excommunication by the church capping it off. The Mayan community see Islam not just as a religion to be practiced in a mosque, but a lifestyle.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome back. Very interesting report. We're very glad to see these Muslims, these Mayan Muslims, embracing Islam. Sister May is joining us by telephone. Welcome to Hada Tonight, Sister May.
Good evening.
Good evening. Can you tell us about more about the start of Islam in Mexico in general?
Yeah. Among the wave of Arab immigrants, Islam has, for the most part, been removed from their daily lives. Islam is a verb that means obedience and submission to a way of life. Consequently, it wouldn't be fair to say that Islam has been present in Mexico. There is no proof that Islam was present in any way in Mexico before these waves of Arab immigration. However, found on a specific exception in a book called Unheraj. The book mentions a story of Yusuf ibn al-Baz, who was one of those expelled by the Christians in Reconquista of Spain and went to Morocco, where he was robbed by the pirates. So he found his way to Mexico in 16th century. It is reported that Yusuf bin al-Baz hated the Christians who obliged his father, who accordingly was from the family of the Prophet Muhammad, to leave Islam and become Christian. He started corresponding with the Muslim word and received a letter from a Qadi in Morocco encouraging him to the steadfast. It has been reported that he used to try and make everyone in Veracruz in Mexico accept Islam. May Allah reward him for his efforts. Islam today is beginning to be noticed and recognized by hundreds of thousands of Mexicans, including dozens of institutions, universities, and the governmental bodies. This is due to Allah's degree, and secondly, to a group of organized Muslims that are working hard to raise the honor of Islam and help the Mexican people see the true light of Islam.
One last question, Sister May, before we let you go. Can you tell us about this center in Mexico, the Center de Mexico?
In September 1995, Muslim Center de Mexico was registered as a non-profit organization. From 1995 to September 2001, Muslim Center de Mexico managed to establish the 5 prayers in congregation on a daily basis. The attendance has gradually increased, and lots of Mexicans are accepting Islam. The new Muslims are receiving lessons on the fundamentals of Tawheed and the essentials of fiqh. Monthly meals and weekly gatherings are held at the Center for all the Muslims. This center has been visiting Muslims in the capital and other cities around the entire country, looking for Muslims and giving da'wah of Islam. For the first time in Mexican history, is having contact with the general public, talks about Islam on many national TV programs are given viewed by millions of Mexicans. Constant radio programs are given. Islamic book stands in the international book fairs of Mexico City and around the country are organized, allowing thousands of Mexicans to learn about Islam. Conferences on Islam in prestigious universities around Mexico and even in states are held. Islamic texts have been placed into major libraries and bookstores in the country, as well as articles on Islam in some major newspapers and magazines. Many activities are done for the sake of Muslims in order to teach him how is Islam. Or what is Islam?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Very interesting,
Thank
Sister
you.
May. Assalamu alaikum to you.
Alaikum salam. Thank you.
Very inspiring story. These Muslims in Mexico are very passionate, and we wish them every success and every blessing. We would like to conclude our news portion of the program and take a short break and come back. We're going to be continuing with our social segment. We're looking tonight at foreign investment in the Muslim countries and Surah Baqarah, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the social segment of the program. This is segment 2. We have a political economy subject dealing with foreign investment. Before we introduce our guests, I want to read an intro that he prepared for us. It says that, this is to contextualize our discussion. He says that foreign investments have evolved over the past two decades to become the most critical business strategies for many companies. While developed countries have been the originators of more than 86% of foreign investment outflows, they receive only 65% of foreign inflows. By contrast, inward investments for developing countries, he says, have risen from 28% in 1990 to 53% in 2012. Our guest this evening is Professor emaad.muhanna, Professor of Political Science and Strategic Studies. Professor, welcome to the time.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum. So our subject is steeped in looking at investments and the impact it has, the larger impact it has. Can we start by defining what do we mean when we say foreign investment?
Well, investment is basically the transfer of labor, capital, and technology, as well as resources from one country to another. When we say, for example, Chinese companies or American companies come and invest in Saudi Arabia or in Egypt or in Libya, that particular investment refers to the movements of some labor, capital, and technology, as well as resources moving from China to the Arab world. And that basically refers to the trade across border. But the impact that investment has is not only on the commercial side or the economic side, but it's also on the political and social sides. Here we're talking about opening the nation to foreign cultures, foreign ideologies, foreign style of life. And then also it impacts on national security in terms of how big these companies that you attract to the Arab world are, how big they are, what their involvement in secret service, for example, and we've seen a lot of companies that are involved in that, money laundering, how they impact that, how they impact the change of culture of local societies. So, for example, if you look at the example we mentioned last week around the Hawaii Islands and the cultural and investment invasion of the United States into Hawaii changed the culture of the Hawaiian people. The language is gone, the traditions, the normal values as an old classic society is all disappeared. The same thing happens in the Arab world. So you find that there is changes on how we understand Islam, on how we speak our language, on how we live our life now different to 200 years ago. And that's all because of investment. Because in reality, capitalists or people that have money basically look for a suitable environment or fertile environment to invest their money. And most of the time people take that as a commercial thing. I'm just looking for a profit as a company. But in actual fact, you bring a lot of things from your culture into the host culture. So you're bringing the politics of your own country, you're bringing the language of your own country, you're bringing the rules and regulations of your own country, and most times the law itself. And we've seen that in things like international trade arbitration, when there is a problem between company A and company B. And we've seen that in the technology side. One of them, was accused of stealing software. Here you find the laws or legislation system of the two countries basically get into one place. You find the cultures also mix. So the danger of investment is not only economic, but in actual fact, economic is one of the reasons why companies invest and why countries push their own companies to invest outside, is to use these companies as a tool for changing and influencing the cultures of other countries. And we've seen that the Eastern Indian company was probably the main company that influenced the apartheid in South Africa. And just a company that was trading the Eastern citizens, the African citizens into South Africa and caused the apartheid. So companies are not just commercial entities, particularly the large ones, but also are tools to influence the social context of the country. And most of the time we find that cultures slowly disappear because of trading with other countries. So we need to take the good part, but also be careful of the consequences.
Yeah, it's a great point, Professor. I mean, it's not just maybe those of us not steeped in the subject may think that investment is just, you know, one company sending money to set up a factory. But
absolutely.
But it's much deeper than that.
Exactly. And to continue on the important point you raised, it's also the type of business you attract. So, for example, if you go to China and you ask them for investment and they send you chocolate and soft drinks, and that's not what I want, because these are consuming products. That's not what I want. I want heavy industries. I want machines. I want cars. I want infrastructure. I want energy. I want sewage. I want water. I want electricity. Those are the kind of things we need to be careful on what we ask for. Because what you find, you know, involved in the investment profile in Egypt, you find that a lot of investment is actually directed towards properties. So you get foreign entities or foreign companies coming to invest in the property market in Egypt. What does it to do with the market?
You mean so that the
they just have buildings, land, farm, exactly. It doesn't have a positive impact as required. What I need you to invest in is factories that can attract labor, generate money. That production in the factory is considered part of my local production, part of my GDP. When I export that product, it accounts as part of my economic portfolio. The money that I get from that export is in dollars. So what you find, and that takes us to the episode where we discussed the dollar crisis, is because we don't have proper investment profiles and economic profiles that can basically create local production platform that we can use to export goods and receive basically hard currencies. So because all we have is all consuming products, toys, chocolate, soft drinks, water, things like that.
Clothes.
Clothes, all consuming stuff.
It may seem, I mean, if you're a developing country, it may seem like a good thing to attract foreign investment. But it sounds like it may not always have a positive impact.
Absolutely. And here we're going to get to the actual consequences.
And also in your answer, Professor, can you explain how it is, let's say it's a multinational company based in California, for example. You said that the revenues count in the country or the GDP
the product,
of
but not the money.
Explain that.
For example, let's take, without advertising any company, there is a company A coming from United States to invest in Saudi Arabia, for example, or in Egypt. They bring in, let's say, $2 billion to invest. Now, they have established a soft drink factory. That soft drink, the product that is coming out of the factory, that soft drink, we as Arabs going to drink it. Okay?
It's not going to be exported to another country.
No, because they already have in other countries. Here, you've got to be selective. And here we're going to be talking about the consequences, the negative consequences of such types of investment. So when you have the soft drinks, the local population will drink the soft drink. But we paid for it. So the company will collect the money from you as a citizen, and I give you a bottle of soft drink. I'll take it, let's say, your $2. That $2 is going to go back to the United States. And that's what we call in economy leakage. Leakage means that the money goes back again to the origin of the company itself. So the company will pay the taxes in the host country. Let's say we'll pay the taxes in Egypt, and then the rest of the money will leave. So if you make in, let's say, the $2 billion, that's already his capital that he invested in Egypt. And he made on top of that $1 billion. He's going to pay, let's say, a third for the taxes, and then the $700,000 will leave the country going back
but
to the country.
Why not just ship the product in from the home country?
That's another option, but here you're losing your dollars.
Because you have to pay tariffs?
Exactly. And you're also sending, let's say I'm going to get the soft drinks in Egypt, and I'm going to get it from Saudi Arabia. Then Egypt will send the dollars to Saudi Arabia to get the soft drinks. So let's take India. So Saudi Arabia will get the soft drinks from India because they have the factory. That money will go to India in hard currency. So Saudi Arabia is losing dollars, getting soft drinks. That soft drink will be drunk by the locals. So it's not something that we can use for production again. Now let's look at the money that went to India from Saudi Arabia. That money doesn't belong to India. It belongs to that ABC company that is already American. So when the money goes from Saudi Arabia to India, it's going to leave again with the company to the company headquarters in the United States. So the leakage happened in India, from India to United States, but the actual import and export crises are happening between Saudi Arabia and India.
Two
developing countries. So India has got the factory. All it's doing, it's a mediator or a middleman that gets the money from the markets, collected, and then the company takes it to the United States. And that's one of the reasons why the United States economy is actually surviving in a lot of services and even knowledge. We call a knowledge economy, because at this point, the hard tangible products, account for about 14% of the world economy. The 86% is actually services.
I'm sorry, repeat that for us. 14 and 8,
14% of the world's economy is in services.
Okay, right.
Sorry, in hard products like cars, machines, trains. 86% of world economy is actually services. Banking.
Non-tangible stuff.
Exactly, non-tangible. Banking, gambling, tourism, public relations, social work, all the entertainment business, movies.
Non-tangible.
It's all non-tangible.
But Professor, I want to go back to Company A from the United States.
Yeah.
It's set up an operation in India. Saudi Arabia is buying from India. Don't they also make out because it's being produced, the product is being produced at a lower cost?
In India.
Yeah.
That's right. So here the difference in production price will go to the company. And this is what a lot of large corporations are doing in China. For example, if you take a shoe, that shoes, if you manufacture in the United States, let's say it's sold for $100.
In the U.S.,
If you manufacture that in the U.S., it's probably going to cost you $70. So you're making your profit $30. If you manufacture it in England, probably going to cost you $80. But if you manufacture it in China, it's probably going to cost you $15. Then you're making $85 out of 100. That's a profit. So part of investment, why companies move overseas is particularly that, is looking for cost that is lower, and also looking for materials. So for example, Egypt has got and Saudi Arabia has got that as well, is the sand that is used for silicon. So why they don't come, and here is the issue of being selective, why these large corporations or research centers or silicon companies don't come to the Middle East and make a Silicon Valley?
To finish the finished chip
product
right there.
Right here.
Yeah.
They don't do that. Why? Because you're going to benefit, you're going to catch up with them in technology.
Right. You're going to have the factory.
And here you've got a hard product. Here you've got a hard product that is tangible. Hard means it's got an asset, meaning that when you invest in insurance, you've got no asset. But when you invest in a car manufacturing company, then you've got the cars, you've got the steel there's a physical product that you use as an asset. So the fact here is you find that the investment, most of the investment that comes to the Middle East is all intangible stuff that accounts for nothing. So why, and that's a question for everybody, even for respected viewers to think about it. It's not about just attracting investment. You've got to be selective.
I want to ask you about the subject of corruption.
Yep.
I imagine that if I am the commerce chief or whatever, responsible for trade and commerce, that bringing one of these factories might be very profitable for me and my party,
yes,
but not for the country.
That's right. And here it depends mainly on the ignorance of the population. So if you look at the media and how they portray or frame the foreign direct investment, I was on TV once when one of the soft companies came to Egypt and talked about investing $600 million in Egypt in soft drinks. And I was asked, and I said it's absolutely means nothing.
$600
million.
Sounds.
But it doesn't mean anything because that capital belongs to him in the first place. What I'm going to be really suffering from is the actual production, because I don't drink, or we drink that, let's say, 1 million bottles a day. Now we're going to be drinking 5 million bottles a day because it's manufactured internally. So I'm increasing the consumption patterns for my population, number one. Number two, I'm going to employ people. But if you look at the products of that type, they actually don't employ, they're not heavy labor. Because you can't use in biscuits, chocolate, soft drinks, water, you don't use a lot of labor. You've got to have an automated machines to eliminate pollution. So the fact here is it's all stainless steel machines that are doing it. So the benefit that I'm going to benefit from as a nation is not happening, because you've got the entire chocolate factory is manufactured by 10 people. So what is it that I'm gaining? 10 people, it's not worth opening up my country for large companies like that. Number two, I've increased the consumption pattern among the nations, among the citizens. Number three, that profit is coming from my own money as a nation, and it will be given to that company, chocolate company, and then it goes overseas as a leakage. Number four, we've got a violation of national security, because a lot of these companies, poor countries cannot actually stand against them. You've got companies in the world that can account for half the economy of the entire Middle East. One company. And electronics.
And also this consortium of investigative journalists that were responsible for publishing the Panama Papers.
Yes.
They gave examples of how companies, let's say when company A owes the host country $400 million in taxes.
Yeah.
They just close shop and move to
that's it
to avoid the $400 million.
Absolutely. You've got absolutely no control over them. And once you step on them, or you try to take them to the legal system, it creates an international relation problems. So investment is a great thing, but it has to be measured, because it's not just about bringing money in.
How well would you evaluate? You're a professor. Give a grade, a general grade for, let's just stick with the Arab countries for now, for those responsible for arranging these deals.
Yeah.
How would you?
Let's talk about Egypt as the largest, and then we'll take Saudi Arabia as the second. In terms of Egypt as the largest, you've got the highest population, so it's the biggest market.
90 million
yeah,
people.
So that's the biggest market, and that's the first factor that attracts foreign direct investment. And it's important, before we answer the question, say what attracts investors in the first place. Large population, so I'm going to sell my product. Number two, there is infrastructure, roads, electricity, energy in general, sewage, water, etc. Stability of the foreign exchange. So I don't bring $1 for £8, and then when I take it out, it's 6. So I'm losing out. Legislation platform, you know, how does it guarantee my money? The support of government to foreign direct investments, so there is no nationalization of projects, for example. Those are mainly the factors that attract foreign direct investment. And in the end, how we agree, a company and a host country, on the you know, conflict. How would it be resolved? Is it the local legal system, or is it international arbitration, or the legal system of the original country? So there's a lot of things that has to be worked out. Looking at Egypt, the investment that Egypt obtained, particularly in the last 35 years, were mainly in consuming products. And I've mentioned some of them, like chocolate, soft drinks, biscuits, etc. And you find that the large, heavy industry factories that were established during Nasser are all sold. And that was in the privatization of the public sector in the 90s. And this is one of the main areas that Mubarak messed up the country economically, because a lot of the public sector factories, Nasser car, for example, stopped. That was a local car.
There was a locally made Egyptian car.
Exactly.
That was government owned.
Exactly. There was a train company. There was an aircraft company.
That made aircraft.
It made an aircraft, and some of them are still used here for training. They were in total 1,200 factories under 189 holding company. And in 1970, with the death of Nasser, the World Bank evaluated the Egyptian economy, that 1,200 factories, 189 companies, that is worth $1.4 trillion. That's the amount valued the Egyptian economy. And that economy equals 3 times the economy of South Korea. That's 1970. So, and that is after the war with Israel, 3 years.
Right, right.
And you still have that great economy. That is all sold in the 90s. So at this moment, the economic crisis that you see in Egypt, because the government or the nation doesn't have a backup. And the backup is a public sector with heavy industries.
Sold to private Egyptian
private sector, and that was actually driven by corruption, because it was sold to private sector and closed it, or changed the focus of the company, sold the land and made it tourism instead of, you know, manufacturing. So very few of them that left as they are. So what we're saying here is that the foreign investment messed up the economy, because you had a local base, economic base, manufacturing base, textile industries. Kafr Dawar, and that's south of Alexandria, and Mahalla, that's in the western province. These two were the largest in the world. Both closed down. They shut down, both of them. So each one was 45,000 workers in there. So when you kill your own economy, whether through wrong policies or corruption or war, whatever the reason might be, you find that you rely on foreign direct investment because you've got nothing.
What was the rationale? What was the thinking when all this was
corruption?
done?
It's corruption. They bring the companies down.
Purposely.
Purposely. So they mess up the performance, and then it becomes basically in debt, and then they sell it with the debt. So, but if you look at the companies, some of them had land that covered basically, as in some factories, 9 times the price paid for it, but just by the land on which the factory was established. So that's basically what drives countries to foreign direct investment. Because if you have a local investment profile, you have a local financing from the local population, you won't need foreign direct investment. But why do you need foreign direct investment? Because to build an economy, you need 3 things: land, labor, and capital. Those are the 3 basic terms that we need to build an economy. Land, you've got. Labor, you're going to have to train them, so it's costly. But let's assume that you're going to go with it. You're going to have to bring some experts with the foreign companies to train them. But the main thing is capital. And the local capital was stolen. So you've got absolutely no source of capital unless you have from outside.
Now, what's confusing about this is that we look at the U.S. economy, for example.
Yeah.
Many things are privatized.
That's right.
So why does it work for U.S. but not for Egypt?
Because, number one, if you look at the three types of economy, you've got the command economy, which is the old socialist economy, where the country owns the three factors: land, labor, and capital is owned by the government.
Mm-hmm.
The private the capitalism, with the free market, right opposite, where the private sector owns the land, labor, and capital. The difference is why it doesn't work for the United States or Western Europe. Number one, because there is mechanism to control corruption. Number one. Number two, there is a mechanism to enforce companies to follow the rules and guidelines of the nation. And I'll give you an example, particularly in the weapon sector. The weapon manufacturing companies in the United States are private sector.
Right.
But yet, they can't export or sell weapons to any country unless the U.S. government approves. But let's have this in the Middle East. You can't control it. That's why certain sectors have to be under the government control. And this here becomes the third type of economy, which is a mixed economy. Mm-hmm. So we've got the command economy, the government owns everything, mm-hmm. even the population. The private sector, the free economy, mm-hmm. The private sector owns everything. The mixed economy, give the private sector whatever he wants to invest in, except strategic sectors. Strategic sectors means electricity or energy or infrastructure, weapon, airports, roads, things like that. Mm-hmm. Because you can't have the private sector investing them unless you have the mechanism to control them. Uh-huh. And if you look at
government oversight, regulations that are enforced.
And no corruption. Because mm-hmm. the fact here is, who actually makes the legislation? The owners of the private sector companies.
That's right.
That's a fact.
That's right.
So if you look at one of the examples without mentioning a name, one of the teams of Gamal Mubarak, mm-hmm. he's controlling the steel sector completely, which is a strategic sector, and that particular factory was nationalized by Nasser because it's a strategic sector. You can't have the private sector controlling that. Yet, he was in a policy committee that makes a policy.
Conflict of interest.
Exactly. So exactly, you're going to see this all over developing countries.
People doing things that they shouldn't be doing, in positions they shouldn't be.
Exactly. And you look at even officials. Now, in law, you shouldn't have any ownership. Very easy. I put the ownership on my wife. And legally it becomes fine. But yet, the factory is on my command. Because it's on my wife's name or in my children's name. So what we do have in the Middle East, corruption, and here it becomes, because matters have been given to those who are not qualified, who are not having the right vision to control countries like that.
Only people that are loyal to the party line.
Exactly, because things are driven politically.
Yeah. Professor, I'm so sorry. I didn't give you a chance to summarize and round out our
No,
discussion.
all we're interested in here is increasing the awareness of that. It's not always what it seems. We have to go deeper, because I do believe that cultured societies are the ones that are able to create civilizations. And we lost civilizations from the day we relied on media without having to think through what we hear.
Professor emaad.muhanna, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This concludes segment 2 of the program. We hope it's been beneficial. We take a short break, come back with segment 3, opening Surat Baqarah. If you're going to be with us, please open your Qur'ans to the second chapter, second surah, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the third segment of our program. As promised, we're opening our Holy Qur'ans If you're going to be with us, please open to the second surah. That's Al-Baqarah, the heifer, to ayat 89, inshallah. We're going to be taking just a few ayats, continuing looking at the Bani Israel, the children of Israel, inshallah. Please let me introduce our guests. Brother Mustafa Abdul Qayyum, thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. And also, Brother Luqman Hakim, salam alaikum and welcome.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Thank you for having me. It's very nice to be here.
Yeah, thank you for being with us as always. Both of you, it's our pleasure. Please, Brother Mustafa, please, if you can recite these ayats for us.
It will be my honor. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ولما جاءهم كتاب من عند الله مصدق لما معهم وكانوا من قبل يستفتحون على الذين كفروا فلما جاءهم ما عرفوا كفروا به فلعنة الله على الكافرين بئس ما اشتروا به أنفسهم أن يكفروا بما أنزل الله بغيا أن ينزل الله من فضله على من يشاء من عباده فباءوا بغضب على غضب وللكافرين عذاب مهين وإذا قيل لهم آمنوا بما أنزل الله قالوا نؤمن بما أنزل علينا ويكفرون بما وراءه وهو الحق مصدقا لما معهم قل فلم تقتلون أنبياء الله من قبل إن كنتم مؤمنين ولقد جاءكم موسى بالبينات ثم اتخذتم العجل من بعده وأنتم ظالمون.
Thank you very much, Brother Mustafa.
You're very welcome.
Great job. Brother Luqman, please help us with the English translation.
First of all, let me begin by saying all praises are due to Allah, the Lord of the universe. May peace and blessing be upon our beloved Prophet, his families, his companions, and for those who follow them in the righteousness until the day of judgment. Today we would like to look at the story of children of Israel. We already discussed in the previous episode that the children of Israel reject the prophet and also their message. Now we are going to discuss the same topic but with interesting things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here said, وَلَمَّا جَاءَهُمْ كِتَابٌ مِّنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ. When there came to them, to the people of Israel, a book from Allah. So if you look at this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Kitabun. Kitab or a book, it refers to the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is using Kitabun with infinite noun in order to describe the greatness of this book. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is using the expression of indefinite noun in order to describe the greatness of this book, that is Al-Quran. So we can learn from here that sometimes Al-Quran is named by al-kitab, or the book. Kitabun min indillah, the book from Allah. So this book is not from man. This book was not written by man, but this is the divine scripture coming from Allah. Musaddiqul lima ma'ahum. This book is confirming. This book is clarifying lima ma'ahum, what is with them, what is with the children of Israel. This book is confirming the book that was given to the children of Israel, that is the Torah. So if you look at this ayah, we will learn that Al-Quran is actually the same of the Torah. So the Quran doesn't give or doesn't bring something new. The message of the Quran and the message of the Torah actually are one, that is monotheistic teaching. So if you look at this ayah, you will know that the message that Al-Quran is bringing actually is the same message that was in the Torah. But Al-Quran is confirming, clarifying what is mentioned in the Torah. So we will know that actually Islam is not the new religion, but Islam is the new message in order to complete the previous message that all previous prophets were bringing to their people. وَكَانُوا مِنْ قَبْلُ يَسْتَفْتِحُونَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. Before that, before this revelation came to the people of Israel, the people of Israel used to seek the victory of Allah in order that they will overcome their enemies. So if you look at the story of this ayah, in that time the people of Israel, they had sort of conflict with the Arab people before the coming of Islam, or the people of Jahiliyyah, the people of ignorant time. There were conflict between the Jewish people and Arab people, and we know that Arab people in the time were not believing. It means they were disbelief. And the people of Israel, they were believers. That is why they were asking or seeking the victory from Allah in order that they will overcome the people of Jahiliyyah. So they usually pray to Allah in order that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be sending the final messenger. This final messenger will be their leader in order to overcome their enemies. But وَلَمَّا جَاءَهُمْ مَا عَرَفُوا كَفَرُوا بِهِ. But when this last messenger was coming to them, and the people of Israel knew that this is truly the messenger or the prophet of Allah, but they did not want to accept him. So when the Prophet Muhammad was inviting them to believe in Allah, to believe in Quran, they did not want to accept the Prophet Muhammad and also his message, and also they did not want to accept the Quran. Why so? Because they would say that we are more educated people, we are more civilized, and this prophet was coming from illiterate people. This prophet was coming from another community. This prophet was not coming from us, from Arab people. Arab people in the time, they were less educated, or even they were illiterate. This way they say, we don't want to accept the prophet from the Arab people. We just want to accept the prophet from us. And actually they knew that the Prophet Muhammad was really the prophet that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was sending to them in that time. That is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here said, فَلَعْنَةُ اللَّهِ عَلَى الْكَافِرِينَ. So let the curse of Allah be on the disbelievers, because they did not want to accept the Prophet Muhammad, because they did not want to accept the Quran. So the curse of Allah will be on them. So this is the first ayah.
Okay, thank you, Brother Luqman. And I want to, if you're just joining us and wondering why normally we conclude the program at this time, we had a late start, and so we are going to be going on for a few more minutes, inshallah. Brother Mustafa, can you continue, please?
Be more than happy to. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most gracious, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon His final messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and so on. Now, as Brother Luqman, by the grace of Allah, explained in the final part of the first verse, that the curse of Allah be upon those who disbelieved. We have to explain that they brought this upon themselves, and Allah has given them many chances, many opportunities, and many equations. This term that I'm using might simplify to other thinkers, other form of thinkers, who think in a different manner, who will say that they could have just accepted the prophethood of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and simply they would not be upon those who will be expelled from the mercy of Allah. But no, they complicate matters. As we go to the next verse, now this becomes the final stage of the Jews, the final stage of the Jews. Even though there are still more, but look at what they brought upon themselves. Remember, after all these signs, this is the 90th verse that we're going through Surah Al-Baqarah together. And we have seen countless, many verses through this surah until now, that Allah has given them chances of forgiveness, mercy, and still they defy Allah. So what happens? They sold what they have been given by Allah for their own selves, for their own desires, for this world. So again, they choose the temporary over the permanent. They choose falsehood over the truth. So it's okay, no problem. This is your mentality. What will Allah do next? That they should disbelieve in that which Allah has revealed, the Quran, grudging. Now look at this term. They are grudging that Allah has favored Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Look at the enmity, look at the envy that they have raised in their hearts. Again, only Allah is the one who judges. We will keep saying this every time Allah has mentioned in the Quran a certain sect of people. So people do not think that, look at the Muslims, they're inciting people to hate us. No, we're not hate mongers. We are simply following the commandments of Allah. And the religion of Islam, even this verse, grudging that Allah has favored the servant, his servant, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But why? What is the final stage that I'm talking about? Is that they have placed themselves in the wrath above wrath, which is the worst kind of stages a person can go through. Because now, if I sinned, it's one sin. But when I sin and say it is halal, I say it is allowed in Islam, I have now played with the religion of Allah, and now I'm playing with fire. Inna ajra'akum al-futya, ajra'akum al-nar. The most daring amongst you who play with fire, who play with the verdicts, is the most daring of you to play with fire itself. So the Jews here have placed themselves in, now you're denying Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I have brought you the final solution that will expiate everything previous and what you've done even until now, and you're refusing him. So they have placed themselves in wrath. What is the first wrath? Is that they have denied the Torah. This is the first wrath. The first ghadab, as mentioned in the Quran. The second wrath, as I explained, is that they are denying Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So now they're playing with fire. Now, not only did they, remember the previous segments, they said that we will only enter hell for a few days. For a few number of days. No, not for a few days and then it will end. No. So let's say, imagine that I'm saying to you, I'm only going to be shot on Saturdays and Sundays, but I'll be alive Mondays to Fridays. That's what they're saying. You know, and it's weird, man. I keep laughing and laughing, and I feel sorry for them at the same time. Because no matter how silly they sound, I still don't want them to enter hellfire. I wish to see them in paradise, but they are the ones pushing themselves away from Islam. So what next? And for the disbelievers, there is disgracing torment. So what are you waiting for? Are you waiting for Allah to send you what? You want a prophet from Israel, from the Israeli nation. You've given Prophet Musa alayhi salam the hardest of times. Prophet Musa alayhi salam fought with his brother. He pulled him from his beard because he said to him that you have allowed them to worship the cow, to worship the heifer. He said that if I would have told them, look, this is a statement of Prophet Aaron, peace be upon him, who said, if I would have confronted them, they would have overwhelmed me. Look at, so they even gave a hard time to the Jews from their own brothers and clans. So those who think that, why not did Allah, because I know atheists, how they think. They will tell you in a mocking manner, is that, man, Allah would have just simply sent a prophet from the Jews. So what doesn't make a difference? It's only the message that counts. Well, Allah, in accordance to the Quran, according to previous nations, He's teaching us, Muslims and non-Muslims, that He sent to them from their own nations. They killed them. They denied them. Prophet Jesus, peace be upon him, was from their nation. What happened to them? Oh, his mother was doing wrong things. God, I seek refuge with Allah from such statements. So these people should understand that they are the ones who deserve, in accordance to their own hard work, they're working hard for the torment of Allah. Bravo. So may Allah guide them and guide us all. So we're moving on to verse number 91.
You have to understand my background coming from, you know, in the Christian church, we're taught to have this great affinity for the Jews, very much, because it's no surprise. We're using the Jewish Bible in the church. And so our attitude, our view of the Jews is entirely opposite to the perspective of Jews. I mean, we know in the Bible, in the Old Testament, that they're killing the prophets, they're doing all these, and the prophets, the writers of their corrupt Bible, the prophets are doing all kinds of unethical, horrible
like
things.
Prophet Lot, they bring him with his daughters.
They're drunk, they're committing adultery and incest, they're murderers, they're deceitful.
May Allah forgive them truly for what they have done.
Brother Luqman.
Yes. Okay, the next ayah that we would like to discuss today, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here said, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ آمِنُوا بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ. When it is said to them, to the people of Israel, Aminu, believe, bima anzalallah, in what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent on. Believe in the Quran. Believe in other different scriptures that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent on to you. What they say, qalu, they say, nu'minu bima unzila alayna. We believe in what only sent to us in the Torah. So we don't want to accept another different scriptures. Torah is enough for us. That is why the people of Israel rejected the message of the prophet Jesus. They did not want to accept the gospel. They did not want to believe in the prophet Jesus. Although the prophet Jesus was from their community.
He was a Jew.
He was a Jew. He was a rabbi. But they did not want to accept. As well as when the Prophet Muhammad was coming to them, and the Prophet Muhammad was given the Al-Quran, they also rejected the Quran, because the Quran is not the Torah. We just want to accept the Torah. The Prophet Muhammad was not from us, so the Quran is only for Arab people, nothing to do with us. This book, this scripture, only for Arab people. This scripture is not for us. Look at what they are doing. وَيَكْفُرُونَ بِمَا وَرَاءَهُ. And they disbelieve in that which come after it, after this revelation. That is why they rejected Al-Quran. وَهُوَ الْحَقُّ مُصَدِّقًا لِمَا مَعَهُمْ. In fact, the Al-Quran doesn't abolish. Al-Quran doesn't abolish law or destroy the laws and also the teaching of the Prophet. But Al-Quran was coming in order to complete their teaching. Like the message of the Prophet Jesus. The Prophet Jesus in the New Testament, the Prophet Jesus ever said, I am come not in order to destroy the Prophet and law, but I am come in order to fulfill. This is like the Quran. The Quran was sent down to all humanity, not in order to destroy all teaching of the previous prophet, but in order to complete their teaching. But in fact, the people of Israel, they did not want to accept the Quran because they believe and they thought that Al-Quran was only sent to the Arab people. The Quran was not the scripture from them. So the result, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Qul, say to them, فَلِمَا تَقْتُلُونَ أَنْبِيَاءَ اللَّهِ. Why did you kill many messengers or many prophets of Allah? The people of Israel killed many prophets of Allah that were sent to them, like the prophet John the Baptist. He was killed. Although if you look at the New Testament, the prophet the John Baptist, he was killed in the time of the king of Herod. But the Jewish literature did not specify when he was killed. But in fact, he was killed. And also the prophet of Jeremiah, if you're familiar with the book of Jeremiah, the people of Israel were throwing him to the well, and then he was dead. So many prophets who were sent to the people of Israel, the people of Israel would kill them. As long as the prophet doesn't give them any benefit, we did not want to accept him. We just want to accept the prophet that is benefiting us. The people of Israel would like to show this thing. That is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is refuting them. قُلْ فَلِمَا تَقْتُلُونَ أَنْبِيَاءَ اللَّهِ. Why did you kill many prophets of Allah min qablu, before the coming of the Prophet Muhammad, in kuntum mu'minin, if you were really truly believers? It means the people of Israel, they were not believers. Even they did not believe in the Torah itself, although they claim that we believe only in the Torah. In fact, their attitude shows us that they did not believe even in the Torah. So this is the ayah that we are discussing today.
Brothers, we have about 5 minutes left, actually 3 or 4 minutes left. So this leaves us with one last ayah, and alhamdulillah, it's a short one, Brother Mustafa.
Well, I'm just going to sum it up in a few words that verse number 92 explains exactly what we spoke about in verse number 90, where indeed Moses came to you with clear proof, clear signs, clear evidences, yet you worshipped the calf after he left, and you were the polytheists, the wrongdoers. So again, as we previously said that if they're arguing, saying that if Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was from the Israelites, we would have accepted his message, but this is hypocrisy in the name, in the flesh. That is not correct, because in accordance to your scriptures, in accordance to the Bible as well, and in accordance to the Quran, and we suffice with the Quran, you are contradicting yourselves and your own nation, and you are against your prophets, you are even against Allah. You're even against your own selves for some reason. There is something in your genetics that you're against everything. And subhanallah, I'm always saying that that they truly, when Prophet Isa alayhi salam will descend upon the Islamic nation soon, and when the Al-Mahdi, may Allah grant him success, whoever he is, when he starts appearing in accordance to the signs of the Day of Judgment, they will face a lot of problems. They will have to face the consequences. And the viewers, if they study the signs of the last Day of Judgment, the signs before the Day of Judgment, they will know that the most severely punished people in those times, and the most humiliated will be the Jews.
It's in fact, it is stated several times about the curse Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has upon the Jews, but I would prefer to say, I mean, that it's the thinking and not the genetics.
Yes.
Yeah, that sets us up for a dangerous situation.
Of course. No, I'm saying, I'm just saying that they have raised themselves up in a certain manner that the generations that have come after them, they taught them. If you teach your son right now to hate the Muslims, he will hate the Muslims unless Allah guides him. When he gets married and brings children, he will teach them as well until it becomes a part of their blood, unless Allah guides them. I'm just saying that it's in the backbone that they have done for themselves, but I'm not saying in a racial manner that no, we should hate the Jews. No, I'm not judging them at all. Just saying that they are the ones who are systematically forming this hate-mongering thing.
Because it's a very long-standing tradition, and there's, like any cultural group, identity group, there's pressure to stay in it.
Yes.
Right? Even, you know, Muslims who want to abandon the faith, it's not easy. Christians or Jews who want to come to Islam, it's not easy. But they do. Many Jews do embrace the truth of Islam, as well as Christians. I'm one of them.
But the Quran is the most unique book, and it has no problems at all. People are more than free to always try to find errors in the book. You will find errors in the Torah, in the Bible, not the original one that Allah has sent down upon His prophets.
That's another thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
But in the Quran, I challenge anyone who does not want to become a Muslim anymore, at least bring some proof, and we'd be more than happy to help you out. That's it.
All right, brothers, that brings us to the end of our discussion. Thank you so much, Brother Mustafa.
You're very welcome.
And Luqman.
Thank you, you're welcome.
This concludes the discussion for tonight. We'd like to end the program for here. Again, we apologize for running late. We, inshallah, will be back tomorrow to continue with more news, information, and discussions. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.